everybody. Welcome to Neurodiversity Insights. My name's Georgie. I'm Head of Client Development at Lexxic. I'm here today with Andrew Mcnally, and he's here to share his story about his dyslexia. Andrew, how are you?
I'm really good, thank you. Yeah.
Slightly different to how it was planned as we're in COVID lockdown. How are you finding it?
I think similar to everybody else, just trying to get by and make good use of the time, and this is certainly positive for me getting to do this. It's new technology and having to embrace it.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And so, Andrew, you were diagnosed with dyslexia. Can you tell us a bit about your journey of getting diagnosed?
Yeah, sort of 40 years in the making. I turned 40 this year, and I'd sort of unofficially been told in my mid-20s that I was dyslexic, but we're nothing to back it up really. So my journey was going through two employers. My second employer, Prince's Trust, where I'm at now, a manager had picked up on some areas that I was struggling in, and recommended that I go for occupational health, which led to the realisation that I needed to investigate this for myself and also for the Prince's Trust to get the best out of me. Mm-hmm. And that led to the official testing, which was really good.
That's fantastic. And when you got diagnosed, did this change how you saw yourself?
Yeah, definitely. I think when you are, in my case, 40, you've had a chance to sort of work out what areas in life you struggle with anyway, and to try and be as organised as you can be. Mm. But when you see something in black and white written down on paper from a test, it definitely takes a burden off you. You don't, in some ways, it gives you a lot of answers, and you realise that you've actually done well. Mm-hmm. Rather than thinking, you could do more. You're actually looking at it and thinking, considering these areas that I've had to try and cope in and keep up and competing. So it gives you the enthusiasm to push on again.
That's fantastic. And have you had any bad experiences relating to your neurodiverse condition? And if so, how did you overcome it?
It's definitely around change. Change is the biggest test that I've come up against with this condition, because once you get into a nice way of working or a comfortable routine, you've already sort of got strategies then in place. But change, so for me, when we had a restructure at the Prince's Trust, I found that more difficult than what most people did. I think all people find restructures challenging, but I found it more difficult than most, just trying to find my feet. So that was the biggest test for me.
Mm-hmm. No, and what positive experiences have you had since being diagnosed?
I would just say lots of positive experiences. Every relationship you have where people know that you're dyslexic, especially in the working environment, is improved, because I don't think there's many people that if they knew somebody was struggling in a particular area would go out of their way to not help you. Mm-hmm. But it's more having that burden removed for yourself, so that you can get the time and space that you need to complete tasks. And also the perception of you can change, because people can think if you're struggling with something, it's not that you don't want to do it or you're lazy, it's because maybe you can't work that way and we need to find a solution. And then you can be judged then when you've found that solution as to how well you're doing.
And what adjustments have you made since being diagnosed?
I think the biggest thing for me is getting the time and space to see a situation and assess how I'm going to tackle it, mm-hmm. Rather than playing catch up. There's things that the Prince's Trust have bought, like a dual screen, which is really, once you get past the initial fear of again change, once you get over that bump and get that working, that really helps. Mm-hmm. Then you know, the slides, the colour tinted things, all those things help a lot. But the biggest thing is definitely people appreciating that sometimes you need to say that I need the space here to remove myself from this situation and go and work in a different environment so that I can actually complete the task.
Mm-hmm. So that makes it easier. What advice would you give to people who are dyslexic or think they are dyslexic and they need to go and get assessed, or potentially, you know, are thinking about getting assessed? What advice would you give to those people?
I would say that there's only positive things to come from being assessed.
Mm-hmm.
It'll make a big difference to how you perceive yourself, or how people perceive you. It's all positive, and it will definitely improve your confidence and your own well-being, because you can get some answers which might surprise you in some areas. You might think you know what areas you're struggling, but actually there are other areas that you might not have picked up on that are challenging you. So it's definitely a case of you can only get good things from knowing that's the situation, getting that official
diagnosis. And did you ever question your intelligence prior to the diagnosis?
Oh, definitely. You know, I've done that. I'm actually working with, I've got a mentor that Prince's Trust has given me as well, has linked me to, which is really helpful, because that's looking at you as an individual, which helps. And part of the work that the mentor's been doing with me is trying to change my own, we're working on me not trying to mind read people's reactions to things. And I think it's, you know, it's something obviously that I've been doing for a long time, expecting a negative reaction from going into a meeting with a one-to-one meeting, or how people will judge you. And it's sort of, we're trying to undo a lot of that now, where I see things in a more positive way, and that you see yourself as you know, as an intelligent person that's got dyslexia. And like, I found for me, what helps me is Albert Einstein. I think if you just say Albert Einstein, and then you think, well, he's clearly not stupid.
Yeah. And is that the person who inspires you?
I would say so. I think there are a lot of people that are famous that are dyslexic, and it does give you that feeling of, wow, they've achieved all that. But then the day-to-day situations you have to go through in life. So I respect people like my line manager said to me, I'm dyslexic, you know, and you see, so there's somebody supporting me who's obviously dyslexic. So that then people actually are sort of the unsung heroes, because in a way they're having to get on with day-to-day life. Sometimes, you know, famous people might get to a stage in their life where they can sort of get support from other people because they're in a position where they can delegate. So I guess it's the day-to-day people that you think, wow, I know how difficult that is, because I've got to do it. And, you know, you've got to get by.
Yeah, and I completely appreciate it. And how do you manage your dyslexia at work? What do you do?
The big thing for me is start the day with a list. It's really simple. I say, because we work with young people, and I say this to young people who I know who haven't been tested but maybe are struggling with something like dyslexia. And I can't stress enough. And when I do that consistently, it makes a big difference for me. Make a list, get organised, and again that comes into that time and space. Make sure that nothing takes you away from getting prepared, knowing what you've got to do, what your goals are, so you can focus on that and not to let anything distract you. So that's how I try and get my headspace real early.
Yeah, clearly that's what I need to do more, create lists. It sounds like a great idea.
Well,
really simple technique. Simple technique.
Yeah, but my missus will say, well, you need to start with your shopping list, and because I've had many meltdowns in supermarkets. They're a challenging place for dyslexia because of the amount of choice, and the amount of times that I realised I need to know exactly what I need here, and it's no different to that.
No, you go in and you forget what's on the shopping list because you haven't written it down, and then you come out with the wrong things. That's what I always find.
Oh, I've had many times in my life where I've bought things from supermarkets that are not right, and people have looked at me funny in the till and thought, why does he want that? And I was only 21, and I remember buying dentures. I thought it was some kind of toothpaste, and but there's all these things that you do, and you think, right, I need to know exactly what I'm doing here, and it's so simple, but it's just I guess that part of the brain that needs that little bit of storage.
Yeah.
Just
bit more linear thinking, kind of setting out everything in I relate. I completely relate. In regards to your talents, what your dyslexia will bring different talents to other people. What are those talents?
I think with me, it's I think I can get good pictures. It probably falls under being creative, but whenever I'm given a challenge, I can see ahead, quite far ahead. It helped me in football management. It's helped me in my job. When somebody gives me a challenge, I can react really well to that because I can look ahead and see the finish where we need to be. The difficult bit for me is filling in the gaps.
Yeah.
To get there, but I can definitely see the big picture really quick, which can be frustrating when you're working in a team because a lot of people work opposite to that. So you want to jump ahead with this vision, and if it gets a bit, you've got that direction where you want to go to, and if obviously people want to go in a different direction, it can be quite frustrating because you can almost see the successful goal at the end, and that's what I feel is it helps me in work. It's helped me in football. It's helped me even when I'm gardening. I have pictures, and many times my wife will catch me just staring into the garden out the bedroom window.
Yeah.
And I can see things that I'm looking for in a couple of years' time, how it might look, how it might be, and she doesn't understand. She's looking at the stages that I need to get to
Yeah.
So it needs curtailing sometimes, but I think that is definitely a strong point.
Yeah, it's a bigger picture thinking. It's a very standard skill set, isn't it, for a dyslexic person, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
That's why there's so many entrepreneurs that are dyslexic as well. So you mentioned kind of you had issues sometimes with working, or you get frustrated. What are the kind of coping strategies you have? Obviously, with being dyslexic, what are those? Can you tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, I think in terms of coping, you've got to sometimes remove yourself from a situation. If a day is getting on top of you, you need to think, right, I need to start again here, start this situation again. If it means creating new lists, I'll make a new list, but put it in neater writing, and then start highlighting rather than ticking. If that's going to make me think I'm moving in the right direction, if things are just getting a little bit overwhelming. And I think the confidence that you need is to sometimes tell people, I'm struggling here, I need to, and if you don't, it can get a little bit, it only adds to the pressure that you're already feeling. So it's having the confidence to say, I'm struggling here in this area. It's not that I can't do it, but I need to go and work on my own. Or but if you don't do that and you sort of bury your head in the sand, you tend to just make things worse. So I think it's a confidence thing.
And I'm adding a new question, actually. No
problems.
How would you say, so there's a massive thing with the connection of undiagnosed dyslexia and secondary mental health problems. Have you ever experienced mental health problems from being undiagnosed originally?
Yeah, I would say so. Again, I wouldn't say I was diagnosed with mental health problems, but I think anybody I was 40 when I got diagnosed, and you've got to go through school. And when I look back at the teachers that I worked with at school, some good, most of my good teachers were in sport. And a lot of the teachers back then didn't know how to cope with somebody who was dyslexic. So you've had all that time at school, often being told off or told you're not listening, homework, you're not listening, all this builds up to the point where you've got these slightly negative voices in your head. And like, even now working with a mentor who isn't a psychiatrist, but she's quite sharp and she's really experienced, and she could already see that I'm mind reading in a negative way sometimes, because I'm probably, sort of as a coping mechanism thought, well, it's going to be a bad reaction to this, because if you haven't built up those relationships with teachers and people like that and peers, then there is going to be a knock-on effect to that, because you're going to sort of always expect to get knocked back. And then if anything confirms that in your adult life or in your career, that only sort of, in a wrong way, it sort of makes you feel like the world can be against you. And I think, like dyslexia, that there's a lot of worse things in the world, but some things are far more clear. Some disabilities are far more clear, so therefore people get obvious support. But I think because dyslexia, like mental health, isn't easy to detect in every aspect, sometimes you sort of told, get on with it type thing. I think there's a direct link in terms of people saying, well, that's nothing, that, get on with it. And they both can be divisive when you look at them from that angle for the individual.
It can be a real struggle.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate it. I've experienced very much similar to yourself, so I completely understand. In regards to kind of advice for other people, what would you say to someone who is struggling at work, or is kind of, potentially getting in trouble for not kind of completing things the right way, or finding things very tough? What advice would you give them in regards to getting a diagnosis? What would you say to that person?
I think really fight for it. Sort of try to get it through your employer, and push for that, because it makes such a big difference. And I wouldn't take no for an answer type thing. I think the way it came about for me was probably out of adversity. If you don't really want to go through that, you don't want to get yourself into a situation where you can't cope, or you're struggling, or you're at risk of losing your job, and then you end up either luckily being, finding that your way to a test. You want to try, and even if you're doing quite well in your job, but you think, oh well, I'm struggling in some areas, go for it, get tested. Whether it's if you have to go through your GP, then that's the way forward. But it's like anything, you wouldn't most conditions you would want to go and get assessed, and the dyslexia is no different, because out there isn't tailored really for somebody with dyslexia. So with knowing that, you've got to try and go forward and get tested.
More of a proactive approach.
You definitely don't wait for people to come to you, or don't wait for you to find yourself in a desperate situation. I think like now there's so much, especially at the moment, people tap into getting fit. Everybody taps into their own well-being more. And if you would, I think like something like dyslexia would be high on that list of trying to make sure that you've got your own balance right.
Well, I think that's really, really good advice. That's awesome. Well, Angie, thank you so much for today. You've been fantastic, and thank you for telling us a little bit more about your story, and obviously coming through Lexxic. But no, and thank you very much to the audience as well. I hope everyone enjoys this.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Pleasure.